leaders in the arena. My name is Jenny Whitener, and I'm the CEO and founder of Bridge Innovate. This webinar and podcast series by Bridge Innovate is dedicated to sharing inspirational stories and insights with our followers. Bridge Innovate is a consultancy focused on empowering teams to lead, think, and problem solve differently. We've been doing that since 2003. And we have a great time working with a number of clients, providing consulting services, future lab design sprints, executive education and learning programs, as well as a pretty cool studio space right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Today, I am so thrilled to invite one of my, greatest friends and long-term colleagues, Dr. Tiffany Bussey, to join us today, talking about designing inclusive ventures, creating business value, culture, and impact. Dr. Bussey is the Executive Director of the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. And I have to say, it is just my pleasure. I was telling her, I was giving my Southern roots. I'm like, I'm tickled pink that she's with us today. But it's so exciting to have Dr. Bussey with us. I just want to give a moment to talk a little bit about her background before I hand it off to her to kind of give us more insights. But just know that Dr. Bussey has over 20 years of experience with Morehouse. She actually was a founder and has built up the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. She has an amazing track record, and I know that she'll be talking with us about that today and some of the work that she's done. She has recently been recognized by the Atlanta Business League as one of the 100 Women of Influence for 2024, and just hot off the press as of last week, announced by the Atlanta Business Chronicle as a champion for diversity in business. Dr. Bussey comes with us with just an amazing portfolio of relationships and impact across the arena in the innovation and entrepreneurship space. So thank you for being here, and please share with the audience a bit more about yourself so they can know you.
First of all, Jenny, thank you for having me. I was thinking about how long we've known each other, and it got to be about 12 years. Yeah. I remember getting started in this work and going to Stanford Design School and getting all excited and, really taking it the gospel of design thinking, coming back and figuring out a way to really bring those tools at Morehouse. And then I saw this email from Bridge Innovate to get certified, traveling to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and doing it. I said, I immediately signed up. I said, I got to do this because this is exactly what we were looking for. And the rest, like they said, is history. You and I have really developed an awesome friendship, business relation, and have partnered in many, many, many of our work. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, sharing my little 2 cents about what we're doing. So I'm super, super excited about that. But I guess for the audience, a little bit about who I am. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Belize, Central America. I came to the United States as an international student for undergrad. I went to the College of St. Elizabeth in New Jersey. At that time, College of St. Elizabeth was a all-women's college. So you can tell I believe in single-sex education. Here I am at Morehouse, 21 years. From there, it has been an awesome, awesome journey. I got an undergraduate degree in economics. Thought very desperately that I wanted to be on Wall Street and be a broker, worked at Merrill Lynch for a few years, and enjoyed the life in New York, and eventually ended up in Washington, D.C., where really got the bug for this small business entrepreneurship, where I saw people that looked like me starting and growing and exiting businesses and acquiring businesses, and I was blown away, particularly in the federal space. I had a wonderful mentor that really took me under his wings and showed me from the procurement to the policies to just understanding that business of federal contracting. And so being in DC, one of the best things that came out of that, I met my husband. We worked for the same company, and he was from Atlanta. He graduated from Howard, and he said, if we're going to do this, we're moving to Atlanta. And so 34 years later, I'm here in Atlanta. We're still married, have 2 beautiful kids. I can't call them kids anymore. They're grown out the house, empty nesting. And so that's been my awesome journey. Still enjoying it. I like to tell folks I have the best job in the world. Truly, truly enjoy what I do. So thank you again for
Yes.
having me.
Yes, and thanks for sharing a bit of your story. There's some of that actually that even after a decade I didn't know. So thanks for sharing that. One of the things that I find very inspiring is that you talk about where you are now as a journey. And I know that all of us reiterate that to all of our professional colleagues and to the young people that we're mentoring, that just because you start here doesn't mean that that's where
Yes.
you end up. It's just a continuous journey. And I thank you for helping our audience remember that and to see that commitment coming through. Let's get into the topic today that we have talked about, and that's around designing inclusive ventures. You have just amazing track record at Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center for doing this. So talk to us about how designing with the marginalized voices and the underserved communities in mind unlock new markets, brand trust, and competitive distinction. I know that's a lot, but it
Yeah.
actually does impact all those things: new markets, brand trust, and competitive distinction. Talk about that for me a little bit.
So awesome because again, the work that we do, we don't see this as charity work. We don't see this as work that needs to be done because it's the in thing. So for us, it's truly understanding. You talked about expanding the markets. If we are indeed expanding markets, we have to be inclusive. We have to bring others to the marketplace, which means that all of your population, and Black and Brown people make up over 18% of this country. And that's just America. If we want to just look at America, when we think globally, it is a majority, right? So if we are indeed, and we are indeed talking about business, we have to include those. I love the framework of design thinking because it talks about putting the customer and who you're designing for at the forefront, in the center. So if indeed we're talking about expanding markets for Black and Brown communities, because that's where the numbers are, then we have to bring them to the forefront. And we have to understand who they are.
Mhm.
So again, this is a business paradigm. This is not a social equity type of thing that we're doing. We're talking about really bottom line issues in order to include that. That's number one. Secondly, I think as we start thinking about where in terms of economics, and here comes my economics background, right? In order to expand the economy, we must have income, and folks that are spending must have income to meet those demands. In order to have that income, we must close that divide. We have a significant problem in this country. We used to call it the income inequality gap. It is now a divide that is growing. We believe here at Morehouse that one pathway in closing that divide, in closing that gap, is through entrepreneurship. By business ownership, we can change generational wealth in this country. So that's our why and why we do this work. In helping our community understand how to start businesses and understanding where businesses come from, we're addressing that particular issue. So this for us is beyond, again, what's in vogue, beyond what we saw in the media. This is really about affecting our communities and why we do this work. So as we begin to teach how to start businesses, we have to look at what makes sense for our communities. Where are the differences? Does it make sense that you start businesses the exact same way as you would in any other communities? And we know that we start businesses, and back to the design thinking, it's a problem, right? You are solving a problem in order to create a market. Any business that just gets started without addressing a pain point or a need doesn't exist. And so if you're talking to the Black and Brown communities, it is through their pain points and understanding that you have to get them to understand it. And that's the way we teach. So it again, inclusive from the community in which we're going after, and understanding those needs and breaking it down from that standpoint. So I hope I kind of did all 3 points in really figuring out in order to expand markets, we have to bring and be inclusive, bring those people in that the markets are going after, and help those that are being the target for the market to actually get income, because without the demand and the income, the whole economy will collapse. And so, without getting into all the micro levels and things like that, it is important, and it is a business paradigm. This is not charity work. This is business work in order to expand that.
Right. And I appreciate the fact that how you're talking about bringing those tools of design thinking really, just even if you get at the core of design thinking, it's really, you said understanding the customer, but it's empathy based, right?
Yes.
Really understanding your customer, your user, your entrepreneur. So what I'm hearing you say is that from an inclusive standpoint, you really understand the community that you're serving. Then you bring in the right tools like design thinking, like the aspects of entrepreneurial launch. I know you have a studio there, the startup studio, all these different resources that connect to that individual, helping them understand how they can use those tools
Correct.
to empower themselves to launch ventures, to build wealth, to build capacity. I know some of the work that you and I've done over the years with like AGAP, I would walk away from those coaching sessions with those those minority-owned small businesses, completely motivated, inspired, the commitment, the drive, just the passion they have for winning and achieving, right? And then the community, the connection, the strength of the community supporting each other was very, very powerful across those programs. So love the fact that you're meeting them where they are, helping them see those opportunities, giving them the right tools, and then that launches them with that competitive distinction in the market.
And I think one aspect to the first question that you posed that perhaps I didn't spend much addressing is that element of trust.
Yes.
We do know that in order to do any relationship, that trust is the basic of that. And in order to do that, here, as we form a community and an ecosystem, so this is more than just a one-off program that we're doing. We are thinking intentionally about how do we form these ecosystems and build community and trust. Our report that we released just about a year ago, last December 2024, really talked about ecosystem building. And at the basis of that, you must have trust. The community in which you serve must trust you. And that entrepreneur must be able to have trust with the relationships, in partnerships and collaboration. Without trust, that doesn't exist.
Right.
And so for those reasons, as we develop these programs, we intentionally think about how do we set these programs up with trust being the factor of being able to say, here's the KPI in which we're trying to really achieve here, and be intentional about it. Our programs are not about butts and seats. It is really about what we like to say capital, yes, because that's the big C everyone talks about. Community, definitely. And the third piece, which a lot of programs don't really address, is that contracts. And so you referenced our AGAP program that we started and had a few years ago, which what we learn has been that when you do these programs intentionally around industry-specific sectors, you can get results in the capital and, more importantly, in the contracts. Without the contracts, these businesses won't have revenue, and without revenue, businesses fail. So back to that point, this is all about business. Mm-hmm. It never leaves there. Yeah.
Well, I do see that, again, having been a partner with you guys for a number of years, I see the intentionality in how you design your programs to build trust. And that I can feel it when I'm a part of your ventures, but I can also see that in the background, how the intentionality is on building the relationships, and even your points about clarity, accountabilities, commitments, all those things being transparent, straight talk, and then the mutual support and commitment of each other. I've seen even in some of your programs that people have gone through them as entrepreneurs, launch, have great success. They come back as a mentor to the next generation. And that level of continuity and commitment just underpins trust throughout the program. So It's hard to do, Dr.
Yes.
Bussey.
Oh,
It's not
don't.
easy, but
I,
you guys have pulled it off.
I am not quite sure, Jenny. I thank you for the accolades, but I think we're still working at it. We're a work in progress.
Yeah.
I mentioned that report, and there's a slide towards the end that we will show because
Okay.
one of the things that came out of it was the study was funded by J.P. Morgan Chase. We had a significant relationship with them, and really grateful for them to give us that space to be able to do that. And the way it was done was convening about 120 business serving organizations similar to ourselves in the Atlanta space,
Mhm.
figuring out how we do this work. So we are learning also as we're going along. And the results of that was that, to your point, alumni and the community in which is formed was a bedrock. Number one was important. So this does not stop. It's continuous.
Right.
I like to call it you have joined the family. We have touched over
I love it.
600 businesses since we've been working at this, and
600.
they're all part of this community and this family. They are now part of the MIEC family.
Okay.
We've been fortunate to keep them engaged, whether it is with our students, because that's another part. The work we do is what I like to say, two sides of the coin. You mentioned the startup studio that we have on campus, which is the early stage, early exposure for our students. So Morehouse is a private four-year liberal arts institution. And with that comes, because of who we are, you have to teach differently. And again, to your point, meeting the students where we are. So for us, entrepreneurship is about changing that mindset, understanding what it means to be an entrepreneur, understanding the problem recognition, and solving a business or setting up a business around that. So it's a bit more than just a small business. The reality is that our students that are here with us will probably not start a business in their 4 years. I'm often reminded by my leadership that it is about graduating on time, number one. And secondly, if they leave understanding the framework of
Right.
entrepreneurship and have that mindset that it's years later after they perhaps go to a corporate work, and we encourage them, go
Yeah.
work in an industry that you're passionate about, and then remember these frameworks in terms of how you put that resource together. How do you understand the empathy and understand design thinking to the problem you think you're solving in order to do that? So we hope that they walk away from here with those. And then the second piece, of course, is the businesses in our community. We have been focused for the last couple of years in what we call scale up. So our tagline from startup to scale up, and scale up for us and why. Only 3.5% of Black businesses scale beyond $1 million.
Mhm.
That's a problem. At
Mhm.
the start of this conversation, I told you our why. It is really to decrease that income inequality gap. And in order to do that, there's only certain types of businesses can really effectively, exponentially do that. And that's those scale ups. Those are what your middle market firms. We have to get them beyond the million mark. 5, 10, 15. And for that, we're intentionally focused in what that looks like and how can we move that needle of that 3.5% of our businesses so that they can employ others and change the community and change that income inequality gap.
And I love the fact how you're bringing to light the data, and then you're bringing to light reinforcement of the tools, and even creating capability like scale up, right? That based on the data, this is another intervention that we need to create in order to support that level of success. So perfect, just exactly what I've seen you do year after year. But a lot of the things that you've talked about so far have really reinforced the importance of culture and identity in these
Yes.
new ventures. And I want you to spend a few minutes because these are things that people always know that we have to nurture culture. We have to be intentional with culture, but it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to move the needle on. Talk to us about how you're embedding culture into the process so that there's equity, so that there's, you're purposeful, and how the entrepreneurial process is launching.
So I think, and I go right back to the framework, right? We know how to do this. This is not rocket science. So if we look at the innovation framework, which talks about empathy, understanding and seeing that person that you're trying to solve this problem for, that means that you must understand that community. We
Mhm.
have to talk to each other. We have to really know, and that's what we're doing here. We cannot continue to teach entrepreneurship and business from a purely numeric standpoint. We have to understand the individuals. So another thing that came out from our report as we were kind of studying with others is that well-being is important. It was missing from the curriculum. It's missing at business schools, but understanding the well-being of the individual is an important piece of understanding who the person is. So when we think of entrepreneurship and business, it's usually an organization. Well, who makes up the organization? It's people. And we have to be able to understand them. So we do believe in the hypothesis then that we started, that in order to expand markets, we need to be inclusive of the majority that is out there globally. Then we need to have conversations with the people that looks different from us. Mm. And in those conversations, understand their individual unique need. It is very often that when we look particularly at the community of Black and Brown businesses, we are starting businesses not because it is a fantastic idea, but usually from what we call necessity entrepreneurship. We're going through this right now in this country, mass unemployment. We believe that because of that, many of these folks will be turning to entrepreneurship. That's a different paradigm than the Silicon Valley model that says, I have a problem, I have a pain point, I'm going to go find a solution. No, I have to feed my family. I have to pay my bills. I have to find a solution, right? And so in understanding the difference in why and what motivates individuals, we have to then teach to those different levels, and that brings in the inclusivity. No one business model is more important than the other. So inclusion then includes even the business models that we're talking about, the business ventures that are started. Right. For some reason, we fell into the gap that it was only tech businesses that are important or that everyone needs to help with this startup. Our motto here, because again, being a liberal arts institution, we welcome students from all discipline, from your art major to your journalism to psychology. Actually, I would say those majors that we see in our startup studios are not our business majors. The majority are coming from the humanities.
Interesting.
And so again, inclusion of diversity of disciplines, inclusion of diversity of thought. And so therefore there will be different solutions and different ways of business. So inclusion is not just about race. Inclusion includes all these other aspects. And I think we need to think about those when we're building ecosystems and including different people, different thoughts, different ideology, and be very sensitive to that because that's what's going to scale business.
And I love this commitment that you're talking about with inclusion. And it has so many different impact for value creation, whether it's the inclusive and recognizing each individual, their talents and gifts and how that could solve a problem, to meeting their personal needs, whether that's serving my family, bringing groceries to the table, or if it's around leaving a legacy, right? I really feel like there's this strong human responsive element that's there that makes it personal and authentic. And then you add on top of that this complete acknowledgement that all of us in all of our different flavors and all of our different styles, backgrounds, cultures have value that we can bring to the table, and acknowledging that and reaching out and pulling us in. So very, very powerful. So I love this culture that you're advocating. Now, I know that just because we don't have a full day together, talk about scaling, because you've talked about inclusive design, you've talked about the culture, you've talked about, getting people to started, but now talk about scaling and what support is available for founders and with unrepresented backgrounds.
So scaling is my sweet spot. I think there's lots and lots of work. Another thing that we discovered as we were doing that study is that many in the ecosystem, particularly in the Atlanta ecosystem, were all on the kind of what I call the early stage, pre-idea, startup stage. very few business serving organization, ESOs, BSOs, we're dealing with the scale-ups, those that are more mature than existing business. That's where we are in terms of the Morehouse Innovation Entrepreneurship Center. And there's some uniqueness to that. So when you start thinking of your financial infrastructure, as I go from maybe a spreadsheet to QuickBooks to now intentionally maybe a more, enterprise system, we're talking differences. We're now talking about how do I stack capital? That it's not no longer how do I need just that line of credit, but how do I bring in capital to meet my revenue, build inventory, build a factory, build all those types of stuff. That's a different conversation. So the scale up really has its own identity, its own factors, and that's where we're really spending a lot more of our time with these companies. The other thing, as I mentioned, is the idea of really intentionally helping these companies to get contracts or revenue. And so we have designed this model called the Market Access Council with partners that are intentional about including these smaller businesses, small contractors, as part of their supply chain. Again, a business competitive advantage, bringing in others to help their large prime business and their large business succeed. With the intentionality that we will intentionally work with these companies and get them ready. One of the things we heard was, oh, they're small. They're not ready for this work. They can't meet, they have this risk factor. They don't have the insurance. They don't have this. They don't have all these other things. Well, that's what we're doing with our programs. We're preparing and getting these smaller businesses ready to scale by being part of the supply chain of these larger companies. And those are the ones we talk about partnership, intentional, purposeful partnership that we invite as part of our Market Access Council and working with them and really filling out the whole ecosystem through those partnerships.
Well, one of the things I love about the story that you just shared, the insights you shared, is that you might acknowledge a shortfall, you might acknowledge something that someone doesn't have or a resource or a gap. But what you're doing is you're balancing that with what are the assets they do have. What are the strengths that they bring to the table so that you're bringing both perspectives in to support them in analyzing scale up? What are the strengths and capabilities that I have, and where are the gaps and resources that I need to resolve in order to hit scale up? And I think that's affirming the individual, going back to the culture that you're talking about. It's affirming them and showing we all have gaps, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's personally or in our business, this is just a part of the journey of growth. Whether it's professionally growing a business or professionally growing as an individual, it's like, how do you acknowledge both of those things and then create the plan and bring in the resources to scale, which is what you guys are doing.
So that point right there, that part. Another aspect, and if you can show the slide that really talks about the report, is what we discovered from that report was that point 6, that is not necessarily in cohorts, but it is in this concept of shared services. So again, we are pivoting a bit and really thinking intentionally of what are those gaps that this particular business or businesses have, and how can we meet them where they are with the intentionality, such as legal support, such as accounting support, such as a shared CFO. What does that fractional service means? So one of the things we heard quite a bit was these businesses don't have the capacity to write perhaps the proposal to then bid. And so this is that shared service model that we're now pivoting on and to intentionally look at. It was the result of our report that really showed the evidence of where this really needs to be. And so I'm super excited of sharing this report. It's on our website. We have the QR code for those that would like to download it and to learn a bit more about it. It's very insightful. We are practicing as we preach. I'd like to tell the team, we're at the intersection of research and practice. And so without the data, we know that things can't really be produced and executed, but that's what we're doing. We're researching, we're building this plane as we fly. We have partners like Bridge Innovate. We bring others to the table, and we are open to really rock and roll and build out an ecosystem and to help everyone. Because when we know that all sectors of the economy succeed, everyone wins. And that's what we're after.
Yes, absolutely. So well said. And thank you so much. I mean, Dr. Bussey, you have built a powerhouse there that's really driving such growth and economic change for so many. They're learning, they're building community, they're having impact in their own lives as well as the communities they serve. And what you're doing is so purposeful and so needed. So thank you so much. Thanks for sharing this words of wisdom. And as you mentioned earlier, this particular report that you're showing now, the Building Black Businesses Report for 2024, is on your website. And remind us again what your website URL is.
It's MIECcenter.com. And again, for those that want to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn. I believe it was dropped in the chat. Happy to collaborate, talk with anyone, explain a bit more about this work, and really invite you over. Come on, visit us. That's how you get to know people. Come on over to Morehouse and have some tea with us.
That'd be lovely. That'd be lovely.
Thank
you again. Appreciate you. And thanks for sharing your wisdom today.
Thanks,
Have a great
Jenny.
day, everybody.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Bye
Bye-bye.